It is really great to see all of you. I think we've had a really great conference, and we are really glad to be at this wrap-up session for the conference. I congratulate all of you for having joined us. I think as Googler, this has really been exciting. So, would you believe we've been through 15 main sessions? We've been through about 20 country presentations. We've had side meetings going on during this 2 days that we've had. We had other things happening on Monday. We'll have a few other things tomorrow, but really, we've been through a lot and we've seen a lot. So the intent of this session, we really wanted to come back and really touch base with all of you about what we've learned. While we're going through this session, we will have Slido open. There'll be a question to this, and what we are looking for from all of you as we go through this session is what have you picked up. I think it's really important to start off by recognizing who's in the room. We obviously have industry that have been here with us, and there are many things you came to the conference to learn about, and you've probably picked up. We've got the national government, and we had representatives, I think, from over about 90 government representatives here, and they all come from different places and who are picking up different things. We've got development partners, we've got investors, we've got very many people. So I think, let me give you a snapshot of what were the themes we've covered during the conference. If you look at the broad sessions that we presented to you at the conference, we had themes that were really looking at finance, and around finance we were looking at investment and financial viability or profitability for the private sector. We were looking at things around leaving no one behind. How do you make sure that in this energy access challenge with looking at everybody who may be in different places, how do we make sure that we include them and we reach the last mile, we reach people who may be in disaster or other circumstances they're displaced? We looked at regulations, and here it's looking at really consumer protection as well as quality and standards and environmental protection. So we are responsible as an industry. We looked at things around how as the industry has been evolving, we're moving beyond lighting to think about productive use. We're talking about appliances and things that now the technology is able to do. Then we looked at policy, going back to what this is all about, working with governments to make sure that we have a proper integrated mix to make sure that we reach the universal access goal, and I think partnerships has been a key theme. I'm joined here by my colleagues and us as the co-organizers. We've got Rohit Khanna from the World Bank, Naomi Brak from the IFC, and Viraj Gada, my colleague and representative for Gogla in India. And we wanted to give you a flavor of some of what we thought, we saw, we heard at the conference. And we're asking you to contribute to that by putting it up on Slido as we talk about these different things. So I'm going to, can we say ladies first? And go back to really, Naomi, what did you pick up at the conference?
I think definitely an ongoing theme in the conference was around profitability and sustainability and viability of companies, clearly. And the 3 sessions that I went to where this was a constant theme was really interesting. I think in one of the sessions there was a little bit of a look back where we reminded ourselves that it's not that long ago that a lot of the topics were around revenue growth, energy access numbers, unit numbers, and profitability was kind of a sidekick. And I think, thank heavens we've emerged from that, and we're really, really driving profitability, because that, once we get there, that's what's going to drive commercial funding. That's what's going to bring the 6 billion to 11 billion that we heard in the market trends report into the fold. And I think what some of the takeaways I took from the 3 sessions that really touched upon profitability were around what are the game changers that will make these companies profitable, what will move the needle. And I think there were 4 key buckets that I'll raise. One of them is around the notion of value chain integration. So that has to be uncoupled, decoupled. It was also mentioned quite a lot in the market trends report. So what do we mean by that? So, companies that are coming to the fore now, there is no reason for them to be vertically integrated. They should focus on what they're good at, and then they should leverage through partnerships what their partners are really good at, and that way they can save costs. So sort of broadly, that's one bucket. The other area is around just general housekeeping, don't overspend, live within your means, and build a business that is resilient to shock. And especially in our sector, we've seen demonetization in India, we've seen currency fluctuations, and now we've seen companies that are reaching the stage where there is a health check and certain companies are being acquired by others, and it's causing concern in our industry. And so if you're able to survive those, it's good for the companies, but it's also great for the investors, because very often for the companies that are going through these shocks, it's horrific, but actually also for the investors. There was one opinion raised by Jeff where he said, investors also have to go to their investment committees and defend you as companies. And there are very, very good reasons why why there are certain movements and shocks in the industry, but to remain profitable is absolutely key. So for me, that was really, really good music to my ears. The other area is around vertical growth. So what's vertical growth? That's really around really leveraging your consumer. There is so much digitization going on. So with point of sale information, with really good CRMs, with good accounting systems in place, and having that information real time, you're able to leverage information about your customers, and you're able to on-sell, resell. Take advantage of that. Use that to your advantage for profitability's sake, I think. And the fourth area, this is a bit, this came from the investor side, but really, really understanding portfolio quality, understanding your repayment profiles and the speed at which that is being repaid, really understanding the creditworthiness of your customers. If you're able to get those 4 buckets right, then you're heading in the right direction of profitability, and then the companies will come. It's the field of dreams, you build it, and the commercial financing will come. So I think that's sort of one half, and I'm babbling a little bit, but I guess the other half would be around 6 billion to 11 billion. Where is that funding going to come from? So some of the takeaways were, there was a session around the pioneering financing gap. So we heard that 10 companies got 80% of the 1.5 billion investment that's out there since over the last years. How unfair is that? Because now the others are left, and that funding for the newcomers is not there. So I think there's a massive funding up there. And then, of course, local financing companies, where are you? I think there's a massive need for us to start knocking on doors and really engage the local financing companies. And that'll become easier once the companies are profitable. Local financing companies, we're talking about banks that are risk averse. Their upside is in getting their money back with a little bit of margin through their interests. And so there's a real need for transparency, for a general nomenclature around how you talk about your business, how you represent it. So for example, there was a great session on Pay-Go Perform. If you don't know about Pay-Go Perform, read up about it, learn about it, implement the KPIs. Because really this is about generating a common language so that we're all speaking it, stopping any form of obfuscation, and integrating really, really solid key performance indices that we can all start reporting against, that we can track against, that we can benchmark against. And for the companies, this would be good because they can then diagnose and self-diagnose, heal issues that they have, and then also go to investors and say, hey, I'm better than my peers in this, and you should invest in me for these reasons. So I think that was a great session. That Pay-Go Perform, for me, was really heartening because it's industry-led. So we had an investor and a Pay-Go company standing up on behalf of the other 60 investors and Pay-Go companies that are taking part in this initiative, including other stakeholders, including, of course, DFIs. So I think that's real progress, and I hope that by the next conference, companies will have implemented it and investors will be using it. So for me, this conference was great in terms of the buzzword of profitability and what we need to do to unlock more investments.
Great. I think it actually ties back to our conversation we did meet with the other national associations on Monday before the conference, and it was interesting that we do accept we are private sector, which means this whole business has to make sense from a financial place for private sector. It's about stimulating private sector to be able to contribute. So I think, let me invite Viraj to maybe talk a little about some of the things that you picked up, particularly around where the productive sectors and where this industry is going, and really about also our approach to consumers. It's up.
Thanks, Patrick. So I would be referring to notes because I couldn't be to all these sessions, but my colleagues from Gogla have been taking notes, and I'll make sure to portray them well. So I think one common theme that we saw across sessions was partnerships, the importance that partnerships has now for the coming decade, because over the last decade, we've seen unprecedented growth, great success for the sector. But for us to reach SDG 7 goals by 2030, we need lots of strategic partnerships. And the key to that is simplification. The last decade, we did not have enough infrastructure, and that's why a lot of companies had to manage everything on their own. Now we have basic infrastructure, and we now can afford to work on our own strengths. We can have value chain specialization now, and that can lead to much faster growth than what we saw in the last decade. I think now companies also need to see each other as partners and collaborators rather than competitors only. And there was also this discussion of partnerships with governments so that nobody is left behind. We need governments, utilities, mini-grid operators, as well as off-grid solar companies all coming together to help companies achieve their universal electrification goals. And when we talk about partnerships, we also need strategic partnerships with allied sectors like telecom, like agriculture. We've also partnered a lot with the microfinance sector over the last decade, but with these two sectors, we need more partnerships. The next thing that was again core was consumer centricity. We also tried to focus that in our opening session. So if companies focus on customer, if consumer centricity is the key target, then success will definitely follow. And that was a common agreement among all the panelists that were there in that session. We've also understood customer needs and demands much better through pay-as-you-go technology. We now have a lot of robust, useful data. We just need to leverage it to know more about consumers, what their demands are, and then all our innovations and technology as well as business models, along with affordability mechanisms, need to be planned according to the consumer needs. Last thing is beyond energy. The key word for this decade, according to me, appliances, productive use. So there is a common agreement that productive use appliances have a great impact capacity due to the income generation capability in addition to clean energy and all the benefits of off-grid solar. So that's where a lot of focus still needs to be done. We've seen several reports, several research on the market potential for appliances, but we've not really seen the route to scale or business models that can drive this scale. So we need to focus on those. We also need to keep in mind the affordability question, which has been the biggest question for appliances. We need to look at different mechanisms, business models. Climate change is there, and it's going to increase as we go through this decade. And that's going to increase the demand for cooling solutions. So refrigeration is also a key productive use as well as a household appliance focus area. For us, agriculture is a great sector when it comes to productive use applications, but we need good specialization and understanding of the entire agriculture value chain. That is something that a lot of practitioners said they were missing when it came to working in the agriculture sector. Yeah, so I think we need to identify the technology and business models which will drive the next growth in the appliances and productive use sector. That's about it.
Thank you very much. It's really interesting watching some of your learnings. And if you look, for example, there's the issue of more focus is needed on e-waste, which goes to the environmental side. I saw before that the one about solar lantern products is still very important for leaving no one behind. I think these are really important things that I'm glad we are getting your feedback on, and please keep sending us whatever else you picked up. I'm going to turn to Rohit maybe as the last one, and especially talking about the integration and the regulation and the policy side. What do you think you heard and came from the conference, and what do you think our government partners would have picked up from this?
Okay. Thank you very much. So I think the first thing I want to say is just how extraordinary this conference has been. I was at the one in Hong Kong 2 years ago, and to come over here and see the incredible increase in the number of governments, of private sector players. You go to the Expo and you see the new products, all kinds of services that are being offered. I mean, just in 2 years, the world has changed dramatically in this sector. So I think the first thing is that this really continues to be such a dynamic sector, and the growth is truly remarkable. From our perspective at the World Bank, we are very enthusiastic about the role of off-grid solar in filling the electricity gap. We think that getting to 600 million people served with solar, off-grid solar is definitely doable. We can fill this gap by 2030. But you know it as well as I do that it's not going to be easy. And probably the most difficult part left for us to deal with is the affordability problem, which was also just mentioned. And we are going to start now having to address the poorest, the most fragile countries, the most remote areas. And so this affordability question is going to have to be addressed. And with that, we are going to, I think, on the question of regulations and financing, need to come up with solutions on how those who are, the 30% of an unelectrified households who still can't afford tier one, how can we make this affordable for them? And I think that means subsidies on the consumer side. So, we've done quite a lot of work on the supply side through RBF mechanisms, for example. But I think the time has come now to look at consumer affordability. So complementing the market development with affordability of the poorest consumers, I think, is the policy and regulatory challenge for all of us. There are a few examples out there: Rwanda, Togo, and I think one of the priorities for us in SMAP at the bank is to learn from those lessons and to support clients in piloting and developing those solutions. I think that what this event also showed was the importance of dialogue amongst the government and the private sector players. You really can't have good regulations, you really can't have good policies without this dialogue and this exchange. And I really hope both at this global level and at the country level that we all go away with that realization that the public sector and the private sector need to work together for good regulations, for a good enabling environment for the sector to continue to grow. I think that, I hear a lot about tier one, lanterns, Pico systems. I think there's no question that there, continues to be a role for those solutions, especially for those the lowest income. At the same time, we need to continue to stay focused on helping those households move up the ladder. We should not just be satisfied with providing that first sort of product or service. I thought it was really also very exciting to see this growing nexus with agriculture, with productive uses. I saw also some of the demonstration there on clean cooking. So I think that this, the fact that we are now looking at all of these different sectors and expanding the kinds of products, all of which could have tremendous sort of pro-poor impacts, is also very exciting for what I've seen here. The last thing I want to say is that I really want to thank, in particular, the counterparts of the World Bank from the various governments who have come to Nairobi. You've come to share your perspectives, your experiences. I was able to attend a few of the country presentation sessions. It's really fantastic. I think this is something we should really do regularly in these kinds of events for the public-private discussion and also for countries to share experiences from each other. And I think that I really want to express my appreciation for our clients who spent the time and the effort to do that and have joined this sort of community of practice around off-grid solar. So with that, I'll stop there. I want to thank Gogla very much for organizing this and our partners at IFC as well. Thank you.
Thank you. And as we wrap up, I think maybe let me also share, to me, what I picked up. One, and especially the visual we saw this morning from IEA, about the number of people that remain left behind and why this sector really remains important. I think I saw from the public funding discussion yesterday a comment that if any, be it development partner country government, is planning to reach its universal access target and doesn't integrate the mini-grids and off-grids, it's just not going to reach that target. I think that was one. Number two, and particularly from both the appliances and the productive use, is that we as a sector are actually able to impact beyond just household use to actually the social economic benefits, and that there is a significant market. We need to really work hard to make it addressable. Number three, I think it's very clear that we are private sector and we somehow all need to make it work, that it is sustainable financially for the private sector. And last but not least, I think it was clear from the regulation session we had this afternoon that we as an industry need to continue forward as responsible businesses to our consumers, towards the environment, and also to our participation and collaboration with government if we are going to keep this really great relationship we have with government and we avoid some knee-jerk in terms of regulation. But thank you so much for this. Thank you to our reporters back. Thank you to all of you for having been part of this, and I'm going to turn it over to Koen Peters, our Executive Director, to take over from here. Thank you very much.
I think that was a very nice wrap-up and a summary of a fascinating 2 days. And as we saw the comments from the audience ticking by, I had to smile with recognition many times, and I was really impressed by all the learnings and comments. I thought it was great. Thank you very much. Partnerships has been the work, give their own reflection on what they've learned here and what I see as the next steps. We couldn't do our work here without those Kenyan partners. We couldn't do it in other countries without our own partners. So we'll hear from Kamal Gupta, the chairman of KERIA, the Kenya Renewable Energy Agency. We'll hear from Walter Tretton, who is from the EU delegation. And we'll hear from Mr. Simon Kapachin, who's the Chief Administrative Secretary of the Ministry of Energy. And I'll start with Kamal first. Kamal, please come up. The floor is yours.
Thank you so very much, Koen. Wonderful initiative, wonderful initiative, wonderful initiative. Specifically, when we are talking about Kenya. We always say that Kenya is a test lab to set, establish, and roll it out for all over. Specifically, I'm talking in the perspective of Africa. And this is why this event is really important. CAS Honorable Simon Kapachin, the team from Ministry of Energy and various other ministries, representative from European Union, team from World Bank, entire development agencies, those are there to ensure that we achieve what we want to achieve all together. At the same time, members of Kenya Renewable Energy Association, Renewable Energy Fraternity. We are all here together to touch the topic of renewable energy, and I'm humbled, as I started with, that this event has been chosen to be in Kenya. Kenya is a market, Kenya is a region, Kenya is a place where things are very susceptible, means it can be adopted correctly, it can be taken up rightly, and that is why probably Gogla chose this venue to be a venue for this big event. And I wish to start with a very close relationship with Gogla and KEREA, Kenya Renewable Energy Association, where we, for last several years, working hand in hand to ensure that we work towards the achievement of our objective together, and we ensure that we do wherever the attention has to be made, which is not going to be limiting to promote and motivate the private sector, but at the same time, to give avenues on various directions. KEREA is really very committed to extend the capacity and really make the capacity building on the ground. I have some statistics to really share upon, and that is where we say that, yeah, KEREA is playing role to ensure that renewable energy would be taken at a highest stream. We started this renewable energy as a topic, and now in Kenya, we are 3 times, rather more than 3 times from the global average of renewable energy mix. I'm sure that most of you know. But this is alone a small statistics, small number, which can say what the commitment is coming from Kenya side as a renewable energy to be given at the highest priority. And we are talking about various aspects. I'm very pleased to, and I congratulate specifically Gogla to ensure that the bandwidth which has been increased. 2 years back when we had this event in Hong Kong, that event was primarily more focused on solar home system and that particular segment. But this time I can see more connected to the need. And the word which Viraj specifically mentioned about beyond energy, that is the topic which we were trying to really make sure that the needs are expanding in the sector. The expectations are also expanding from the people. So as organization, as organizers of this event, I really appreciate that, yeah, this is what is the need of the time to expand the bandwidth. I wish to quickly introduce KEREA, Kenya Renewable Energy Association, is an association which is business member organization, but our commitment, our role, our participation, or our engagement is primarily to ensure that we run hand in hand with the ministry, with the government, to achieve the objective and the mission, what is actually needing for the people of the country. That is why we are working very closely, whether it is Kenya National Electrification Strategy, whether it is COSUP, various activities and events which is brainchild of the government, and we as a team are ensuring to convert that with the help of a membership. And it is very important for each one of you know that our membership is not limiting to the business associations or organizations. We are expanding to technologists, technocrats, academia, so that we ensure that participation and engagement would be up to that level. So making that sure that engagement of KEREA and participation of KEREA members would be to achieve the objective and role. Now we are seeing that a lot of our mission is by 2022 to have a universal access to energy. To achieve that, where we are almost somewhere around 75–80%. So we have some extra mile to achieve, and at the same time we have to do some extra efforts. So I wish that this event is going to really make some what is called catalyst to take the whole momentum up. And we as KEREA would always be in there to activate and create the momentum on ground together with Gogla and ensure that all our activities and initiatives are to meet the mission, which is what we are taking together. So once again, thank you so very much for organizing such a great event, Mr. Cohen, and the team which was behind this organizing this particular event. And on behalf of entire sector, which belongs to Kenya and which is even the people, those are really keeping renewable energy in their heart, I wish that we can take extra mile by making our personal efforts and making our objective fulfilled. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. Then I'd like to invite Mr. Walter Tretton, the first councillor and head of infrastructure from the EU delegation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kun. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. I'm indeed in a way the energy antenna of the European Union here in Kenya, as being the head of section dealing with energy in our delegation to this beautiful country. Firstly, allow me to remind you and us, the audience, of the connections between the success of the off-grid solar industry and the EU development goals and wider global development goals. Who would question that energy is a necessity for almost any economic and many social and cultural activities? Who would question that clean energy is also the key to our future well-being in terms of mitigating climate change, and that in particular decentralized energy is also important to increase resilience to climate change, for example, in terms of solar pumping for irrigation. It is obvious that to eradicate poverty and to power sustainable growth, we need to achieve universal access to energy together with the long-term objectives of the Paris Agreement and all of the SDGs. Of course, SDG 7 on energy access and energy efficiency and SDG 13 on climate change are most directly concerned. But isn't it hard to find a single SDG which is not in one way or other linked to energy? We are now at a point where technologies and business innovation have made it possible for millions of people to get access to reliable, clean and affordable energy. This is what the last couple of days here in Nairobi were all about. You are at the forefront of this. Thanks to you, solar is now mainstream. At the European Union, we know this, and we appreciate it, and we are supporting this in many ways. Energy has been, is, and will also remain in the future in the focus of our support. Exactly because it has links with so many key aspects at the same time. I mentioned climate change already. Productive uses, jobs, economic growth, rural development, food and water security, health and education. All of this needs energy. We recognize you, and I can assure you that supporting the renewable energy sector and you will remain a priority under the new European Green Deal, the European External Investment Plan, and the Africa-Europe Alliance for Sustainable Investment and Jobs. Secondly, let's maybe go a bit deeper into why we are here today. And by we, I don't mean us as the European Union, but all development partners, you, the private sector, whose potential to bring about change is so enormous, and of course our partner countries in sub-Saharan Africa, most of all our host country, Kenya. It is important that we work collectively to strengthen targets for renewables and energy efficiency, to address the climate threat, protect ecosystems, improve health, decarbonize energy systems, and achieve SDGs. There's a lot to do. As was surely mentioned these last 2 days, sub-Saharan Africa has the lowest energy access rates in the world. Electricity reaches only about half of its people, while clean cooking reaches only 1/3. Roughly 600 million people lack access to electricity, and 890 million cook with traditional fuels. And this in spite of real success stories such as Kenya, and His Excellency the President has reminded everyone yesterday here of the very big strides that Kenya has taken to achieve universal access, but in all of Africa, but even in Kenya, a lot still remains to be done. Dramatic lack of energy access together with a high vulnerability to climate change pose a major threat to socioeconomic growth and sustainable development. The EU's forthcoming comprehensive strategy with Africa and the 2020 summit between the African Union and the European Union are expected to make climate change, renewable energy, and environmental issues key priorities between the two continents and building on the existing Africa-Europe Alliance for Sustainable Investment and Jobs. No doubt, achieving universal access to electricity in a vast continent like Africa cannot realistically be achieved only by extending the electricity grid. The cost of connecting remote villages and sparsely populated areas to the national grid is disproportionately high. While low consumption from village households would yield very little revenues for utilities. Such an option would be too expensive and seriously jeopardize the financial health of utilities in the mid to long term. The planning for electrification should take into account financial and technical realities, but populations in remote areas should not be left behind without basic energy services while waiting for the grid to arrive. Fortunately, we are in a situation in which innovative solutions now cover most of the electricity needs of remote villages, or can cover most of the electricity needs of remote villages in a sustainable and autonomous way. These solutions range from independent local mini and microgrids to community-managed systems and standalone solar home systems combined with portable photovoltaic appliances for light. These systems overcome the distance barrier as they utilize local renewable energy sources such as hydropower, wind, renewable biogas, and in most instances, solar power. They can become the main energy source or can be used to hybridize existing power sources such as diesel generators. Community involvement is important in this to handle the demand side management as well as maintenance, production, and distribution aspects. In this context, events like this Global Off-Grid Solar Forum are crucial for this process of universal electricity access. They are crucial to share successes, learn from each other, align the thinking and the messages, and to close deals. Especially in a market that is moving as fast as off-grid energy, we need events like this to stay in tune with what is actually happening out there. This is also very important for the likes of myself, so that we can guide and fine-tune our support instruments better to fit your needs. Let me therefore congratulate GOGLA, the World Bank, and IFC, and the government of Kenya for this immensely successful event that they have organized here and that has inspired all of us. Third, allow me to do a little self-promotion for the European Union and our programs, etc. Of course, we are committed to all of it. For the period 2040-2020, 3.7 billion euros have been allocated to sustainable energy cooperation, with 2.7 billion euros of that being targeted to Africa. I've already mentioned some high-level approaches. There are a few more of those. For instance, under the Africa-Europe Alliance, there's a high-level platform for sustainable energy investments. And another key policy initiative supported by the EU is the Africa Renewable Energy Initiative, an African-owned and led initiative co-financed by the European Union. Given what I told you so far, it will not surprise you that our three main targets, call them big bets if you wish, are access to energy, renewable energy and energy efficiency, and fight against climate change. To achieve this, the EU efforts are structured along three drivers. To promote political ownership and partnerships is the first one. The second one, to improve the governance and reforms in the energy sector. And third one, boosting investments through innovative financial instruments. One of the tools we have for that is Get Invest. Through Get Invest, we are sponsoring this event. The colleagues are here. I don't know if Michael Franz is around. They are at the Expo, and you can reach them. They provide support to companies. They can support you in various ways, for example, by sponsoring these events and others, by providing information about markets and financing instruments. They also have a facility that can assist you to mobilize funding for your businesses. Secondly, of course, we also offer support for financing and investment itself. Our flagship facility for de-risking and supporting investment in the sustainable energy sector is called Electrify. And Dominique is here. He was speaking today, Dominique de Koning. You can easily Google Electrify. Just remember it is an I at the end, I like initiative and not a Y. So they can finance also smaller ticket sizes with different types of funding, including development capital. Electrify is expanding very quickly, including also through dedicated country windows. And I'm very happy that a specific one for Kenya will be created, as it has been created already for a couple of other African countries. There are also other support facilities. I should not forget the French managed ones. There is a so-called Africa Renewable Energy Scale-Up Facility, RSUF, which provides financing for companies. And at the Expo, I also saw that the Green Mini-Grids project has a stand there, which provides to mini-grids developers even grant financing for Kenya. We also support technical assistance facilities. But let me stop now, hopefully becoming really too long. I see a looming sign there. Please finish. Before I close, once more, a big thank you to the organizers for having me speak here on behalf of the European Union and for bringing everyone together. Let's give them a big applause. Thank you. Asanteni sana, as we say in Eastern Africa.
Well, Mr. Tretton, thank you very much. I think that applause was also for you. And you came out with some big numbers of the support from the European Commission for energy and climate-related initiatives. But what we find really valuable is that you're not forgetting that we need facilitators in this industry and that you enable us to play that role. So thank you very much. Then, lastly, before we start to wrap up, we have, of course, a very valued and important partner here in the Ministry of Energy from Kenya. We started this cooperation several months ago. It was a bit of testing from both sides and a bit of finding each other's way of working. But I think in the end we had a great cooperation and which brought great value to this event. So Mr. Simon Kapachin, Chief Administrative Secretary from the Ministry of Energy, I would kindly like to invite you to also come up with some closing remarks.
Thank you very much. The Deputy Minister of Energy for Sierra Leone, I don't know if he's still here or he has left. Mr. Rohit, Ghana, SMAP Manager, World Bank, and all the team from World Bank. Madam Radhika, President of Gogla, Cohen Peters, Gogla Executive Director, Walter from European Union, who have just been here, Kamal Gupta, Chairman, Kenya Renewable Energy Association, Ministry officials, led here by our Director Renewable Energy, Engineer Kiva, all participants in this hall, good evening. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great pleasure this evening to close this auspicious gathering. But I'm told I shouldn't close because tomorrow there are still some work to be done. So I will close up to today. The 6th Off-Grid Solar Forum and Expo. We note that over 1,400 delegates representing 68 nationalities have participated in this premier event. It is our belief that this biannual Global Off-Grid Solar Forum and Expo has lived to its billing as a unique platform to acknowledge platform for knowledge exchange, networking and showcasing innovative and cutting-edge off-grid solar products and services, the one we saw yesterday. I'm reliably informed that you have deliberated on matters pertinent to the industry that include strategies to scale up the market for efficient appliances and productive uses. It was evident that today we now have mature technologies for irrigation and other agricultural production that are ready for broad adoption. Transition from household use to productive use will see this sector contribute to our social and economic development agenda as national governments and as a global community, supporting income generation and employment opportunities for off-grid communities. Further, you have discussed the importance of, one, exploring partnership that can lead to increased uptake of solar products. Two, leaving no one behind by using innovative business models and channeling subsidies in the most effective way in order to reach the most remote and poorest households. You have also addressed the use of energy solutions to promote agribusiness, best practices in creating an enabling environment for private sector, using public funding to activate markets, and managing risks in financing off-grid ventures. I trust that local stakeholders have taken advantage of this great forum to forge partnership with international participants over the past 2 days. I also note with satisfaction that financiers were provided with an opportunity to learn more about the off-grid sector, and with these enhanced understanding, they will be able to make more informed investment decisions. With partners such as you, all our partners, World Bank, etc., supporting the government of Kenya and others around the globe, I encourage all of us to remain committed to strategies and programs which will ensure effective universal electrification, including off-grid solar. In Kenya, we have leveraged technical assistance from SMAP to develop frameworks for integration of mini-grids and standalone solar solutions in our national energy mix, which informed our decision to implement the targeted Kenya Off-Grid Solar Access project, which is popularly known as COSAPIA. COSAP is one of the innovative ways in which we are addressing access and affordability, particularly for rural households. This approach was strongly validated by the conference, and as His Excellency the President noted yesterday, we welcome others to learn from us. It is my ardent hope that partners will commit themselves to implement the resolutions that have been reached at this forum and accelerate growth of this sector in the coming years. I know you have had many deliberations, you have exchanged ideas and come up with several resolutions which we witnessed when we came in. And I think this is going to help even accelerate the agenda going forward. We thank you for honoring Kenya to be the venue of choice to discuss these important issues. And that's why His Excellency the President found it in order to come and preside the opening ceremony yesterday because of the passion the President has on issues of energy and especially renewable energy. So we look forward to hosting you again in the future. As advised by His Excellency the President yesterday, I encourage our guests to take more days to enjoy our heritage and rich natural diversity. Tomorrow and in the next day. So mine was just come to say those few remarks. And as I said, I don't want to close because I know tomorrow you still have more engagements. But from us, the ministry, we are very, very grateful for the partnership. Us as a country, we can't do it alone. And any other developing world. So we'll need to learn and partner for us to be able to make strides from where we have reached. For those few remarks, I don't want to say much because I know you have had a very long day. I want to wish you well. And again, thank our partners. All our partners who have made this forum a success, partnering with our ministry, we don't want to take this for granted. And we look more in the future as we strive to achieve the goals, 2030, the Vision 2030 and other goals that we have put forward. So thank you very much.
The CAS wanted to share little gifts of appreciation to some of the key organizers, and I'm going to invite them up. And as they come up, I'll note something. I think the CAS is a humble man, but for you to be just as a matter of interest, he was the first governor of one of our counties called West Pokot. And I think he probably has a very personal appreciation to the role of off-grid for his people and for that community. And those of us who do business in Kenya will probably recognize that. I'm going to invite Rohit, Dana, Kamal, Kun, Radhika and Itotia. Yes. Kun is our executive director. Rohit is with the World Bank. Dana is with SMAP. Kun is our executive director at Google and has helped really make this happen. I think great things come in small packages. Radhika is the president of Google, and she's also a representative of the industry. I think one of the leading companies. I think the work that Lighting Africa and Itotia and the rest of that team have done is, I don't know how else, from Lighting Kenya program and all that. I will not forget, some of our people may be quite invisible, but there's a lady here who particularly, I think, driving all of us, has really played a big part in making this happen, and one of our staff. I don't know if Sarah is anywhere. You may not, all the exhibitors, all the individuals, all the contractors really engaged and worked with her. Let me invite Walter with the EU for the great role that they've played, and then Kamal, who really leads the sector here in Kenya. Thank you.
Is on. Thank you very much. Maybe you can want to stay on stage as we have a few words to say to wrap up. We're nearly done. So with this, we come to an end of the forum part that has been organized by event organizers, GOGLA together with World Bank and IFC and with the Ministry of Energy of Kenya. And indeed, there's a third day, and some of the sessions on the third day will be being organized by the World Bank or by GOGLA or by IFC, but most of them are organized by partners. And of course, I hope you all stay for another packed day. But the first 2 days have been packed, and they've been everything that we hoped for when we organized this. We registered, in the end, over 1,500 participants. There were another 100 that joined us since yesterday. The absolute highlight of that has, of course, been the opening of our event by His Excellency President Kenyatta, and particularly the recognition that that gives to the industry is immensely valuable for our sector. But also beyond that, I hope you found this a valuable event. The sessions, the expo, the networking and the socializing opportunities. In the end, one of the KPIs for us is the many valuable new connections that you made in this event. And from the evaluation that we ask you to fill in, we hope to learn from you that you've made many new interesting connections. Speaking of that evaluation, you will be encouraged to fill that in. And it's a little barrier that you need to pass before you get access to all the presentations and the recordings that we've made and will make available to you. Radhika.
I think one of the other objectives of this event is to make sure that we are all on the same pace, or we have a sense of where the industry stands. I think particularly speaking on behalf of the board, this event is especially helpful to take a temperature of the industry and know that we're heading in the right direction. I am super honored to be serving with an extremely dedicated, passionate, and talented board. And we've spent the last few months discussing with GOGLA quite a bit about our role in the industry, or rather GOGLA's role for the industry to convene, promote, and protect the industry. And I think these last couple of days have been really successful in convening the industry from around the world. I think also really successful in promoting the industry, particularly with all of the attention we got from yesterday and today. I think we also still have some work to do together to make sure that as we continue to build and grow our industry, that we continue to protect and create environments for us to operate. One thing is clear, we've achieved a lot, and we've got a lot more ahead of us.
Okay. So one of the terms we heard all the time is partnerships. Also, for organizing this event, there were many partnerships. I can't mention all of them, but there's a few, of course, that I'd like to point out. Rohit, Dana, Itocha, the partnership with World Bank and IFC has been great, again. Not to be taken for granted, but it's been intense and it's been very valuable. So maybe a round of applause for the World Bank and IFC. As I mentioned already, Mr. Kapachin, the cooperation with the Ministry of Energy in Kenya has been fantastic. I particularly like to point out Mr. Engineer Kiva here on the front, and your team, much appreciated. And of course, I'd like to thank again all our sponsors and supporting partners, without which we would not have been able to do this. You might think they get some recognition out of that brand value, but it's very generous for them to have the trust in this event and to make it able for us to sponsor that. And some of these sponsors have been really early signing up and making it really easier for us to organize the event. So thank you all sponsors, particularly the gold sponsors, Angaza, Opus, B-Box, and Greenlight Planet. Thank you very much. And then, of course, we had a lot of suppliers and service providers that helped us organize this event. I would like to have a special round of applause for Hendrika and her team from Sky Planners. Fantastic work, and all your subcontractors. Hendrika, are you around or not?
Still planning.
Okay, still planning, still making. I'd like to thank the people from the venue, from Safari Park Hotel. I hope you all agree with me. There's been a fantastic and nice venue, and the service has been great here. Thank you very much, Safari Park. And while we sometimes felt they were invading our space a little bit, I think we should also give a special round of applause for all the security people that made the visit possible yesterday.
And we absolutely cannot forget the Gogla team. Can we have all of Gogla stand up, please? All the global team. This has been an incredibly intense undertaking. I would especially like to call out the events team, Sarah, Lara, and Patrick, who became part of the events team, our East Africa director. I think the entire Gogla team has put in countless hours, but you all especially are owed a nice long rest after this week. Yeah.
Thank you very much, Radhika. Very much appreciate the recognition. As mentioned, not done yet, other day, but also another things that I'd like to call out. At 6 o'clock, for those that still have the energy, there is the nice Gogla Olympics that we organized together with the Access to Energy Institute. And I have a little attribute to help you recognize what this is all about. It's about fun. It's about networking and socializing outside with nice people. It's next to Mount Kenya. If you can't find it, there's a massive pink flag. And it's not competitive, it's not threatening. Join that if you like to join. I also like to point out that there's 2 more field excursions organized on Friday. If you would like to sign up, use the app.
There is one more silent warrior who's been behind this, Aisha from the World Bank team. I don't know if she's here. No, yes, there. Yes. Yes. And Becky. Yeah. Come on up. And Becky. Yeah. And I think with that, we wish you all a wonderful evening and a very productive full day tomorrow for all the additional side events.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.